I don't think we've covered enough Strategic Simulations Inc. video games on this channel so far, have we? I may have touched on Al-Qadim the Genie's Curse. I think I made a video of it on the channel, and perhaps I may have at one time mentioned Eye of the Beholder or the other Dungeons and Dragons games, but not really all that much has been said about one of the more important series that SSI used to make way back in the day. For you see, there was a time when people actually enjoyed playing war games, hex-based combat games, focusing primarily on the World War II scenario with panzers and their generals and their scorched earth and their 3D eventually. Now I know what you're gonna say, but Slytherin literally makes only games like these. It's pumping out like 2 or 3 of them a year, I think. And yeah, you'd be right. And the 3 of us would also be the only ones that know what Slytherin does and is. It's a game publisher. They do a lot of war games that have some similarities to the old 5-Star General series. Now they called it 5-Star General because there were 5 games in the series. There was the Panzer General, there was the Axis General or Allied General, there was a Pacific General, and anyway, those were based on reality, on... I don't think I'm gonna get any friends by saying this, but on the boring things. They were focused on the boring things. As a setting, personally, for strategy games, I tend to find World War II a bit boring. It's just so vanilla, so derivative, if you will. Yeah, I know that sounds horrible, but the people at SSI sort of thought the same thing, since they went on to make Fantasy General. Now this was essentially the same kind of game. You would buy units, you would field them, and you would smash them into the enemy units, and whoever's numbers were better won. Also, while keeping in mind that certain types of units were better against others, certain units had different kinds of attacks that would be better used in certain situations. There was such a thing as backup. If you had a ranged unit next to a melee unit and that unit was attacked during the enemy's turn, it would be backed up by your ranged unit and the enemy's turn as well, and it wasn't what you would call a super incredibly complex simulation by today's standard, were to compare it to, probably what Slytherin is making these days. But for the time, it was a sufficiently advanced simulation, or a game system, if you will, not really simulation since there are dragons in it, that the end result was actually kind of a fun game. Now, the main difference between Panzer General and Fantasy General is that it's placed in a fantasy universe. You take the role of one of 4 characters, a wizard, a knight, a barbarian, and a sorceress, that must gather their armies and conquer the land and oppose the evil lord of the shadows, of darkness, who has undead and all sorts of other mean things and will probably melt your face with a fireball. And these leaders, they have different capabilities. Some of them are spellcasters, some of them are just really buff, and when they flex their pecs, heroes will come to aid them in their battle because, man, dude, like, you lift, bro. This, of course, in the game's campaign. You can also play it in multiplayer with any faction you wanted to. You can also play it actually by mail if you wanted to with other people, or just a skirmish against the AI. But mostly, what I would say worked best was the campaign, because the campaign had the concept of an evolving tech tree. You would start off with certain units, and as you progressed, you could invest some of the money you would earn from your battles, from your exploits, into researching better versions of those units. And so you would end up with units that kept leveling up, kept getting experience, and would become stronger, better, faster, harder, scooter. It sort of endeared you to keeping these units alive, to using that rest button when they were broken so they could heal up, so that maybe they won't be killed by that goddamn skeleton that just charged you in the face. You could even equip them with certain items that you may find in your adventures, like a staff of fireballs, which you start by default if you're a wizard, and you lose if the unit that carries the item is killed in battle, even if you win the battle. And of course, if you spend too much money on researching new units, surprise, you're not gonna have enough money to actually buy or recruit those units into your army and use them in the middle of battle. One good thing was that even though you were encouraged to set up your army before battle, if you still control a town on the battle map itself, you would be able to just plump in a new unit there as long as you had the cash. And there were some occasions during the battles themselves, some side objectives that you could capture to give you some bonus gold that you could use immediately to purchase more units. Something very useful when you forgot things like, oh yeah, I should probably have some ranged units here to back up my people. The game lived and died on the battle map. There's a strategic map. I can't really call it a strategic map. It's a map of an island. Well, there's like 4 or 5 islands, and you click on where you want to go next, and depending on what you click on, you will have a different scenario, a different battle scenario. But you never get to choose the other one again, and the other one gets solved automatically once you win this one. And you just progress through a a branching linear path that goes from your castle to the enemy's castle, and then you win. There are several islands that you have to conquer before you go fight the big bad evil Dark Lord of the Shadows in increasingly more difficult scenarios of combat. Now, when it came out, the game was not really all that lauded for being difficult, but that was 1996, so by today's standards, it can be considered a bit of a tough game if you play it on something other than easy. It is a game that absolutely does its best to make you want to use all your units to their best potential, and all your spells and everything you have to use them. You have to know how they work. You have to know the difference between a skirmisher or skirmish attack and a ranged attack. Have to understand what a bombard unit does and why it's important to have them when the enemy doesn't have any sky interceptors or skyhawks, whatever their names are. And if you may think, well, isn't that the basic idea of every strategy game? You have to know what the units do. Well, not necessarily. And a lot of them you can just skate by, building the most expensive thing and just sending it towards the enemy and everybody dies. Not in this one though. It took a bit more tact, if you will, a bit more strategy, which is fine for turn-based strategy to have. I actually think, would it be better said if it's a turn-based tactics game? Because you don't build buildings. Yeah, it's turn-based tactics game. It's in the Panzer General series, which I used to call Panzer General because I kept thinking it was German, because it had Panzer in the name, and most of the gaming materials I used to find back then they were in German. Germans used to have a different name for Need for Speed 4. It was Burning Asphalt. That confused the hell out of me because there were like 5 versions or 3 versions of Need for Speed 4. But that's a tangent. Let's not go down that path yet. I've never finished Fantasy General, but I got close. I think I may have been in the 3rd island or the 2nd one. Anyway, I beat at least the 1st island. The first one after the first one, where there's basically just a tutorial of the game after you start encountering the undead. And I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the game. I love it because, well, it's a fantasy game that's just about turn-based tactics, and your units evolve with time. You get upgraded versions of them. You can name them. You can see very, very beautiful sketches of what they look like, and it's very endearing. I love that about it. And then I hate everything tied to the way that the objectives are set up. Well, the objective. The idea is thusly. You have 10 or 15 rounds, turns if you will, to conquer the enemy city, or one of the enemy cities, or several enemy cities on the map. If it's round 14 out of 15, and you just ended your turn with your last unit, like right in front of the enemy castle. The enemy that was in there guarding it is now 1 hex away because you drove it out of there and you don't have any more movement units, and you can't really move anything you have to that hex. You lose. You're just like right in front of the city. It's wide open. Yours for the taking. Turn 15, you lose. Or turn 16, you understand what I'm saying. That turn limit always was just like a complete buzzkill for me. I know it's there so you're supposed to think more tactically, more efficiently, but it kind of takes the fun out of the stuff. It forces you to not really enjoy it, but more stress out into how you can finish this mission as fast as possible. And I don't enjoy that. That's why I modded out time limits in XCOM 2, because they weren't fun. And for me at least, they weren't fun in Fantasy General either, so that's why I kinda gave up on it. but it may be fun for you, I guess. I don't know exactly who you are. You're a different person than I am. You may enjoy this, actually. Also, the current version of the game has some issues with mouse scrolling being god-awful. Thankfully, there is a tactical map that lets you see the majority of the map, so you're not completely lost. Now, traditionally, when I make one of these shows in about a week or a month, there's an announcement about a remake of this game or a re-release. You know, like what happened to Blood. Remember Blood? Made a show about it 2 weeks ago. They're remaking it. Yeah. Well, there's really not a danger of that happening with Fantasy General because, well, for one, it's already on GOG, you can buy it in the original version, and there is a remake. It's called the Elven Legacy series. Actually, there's a bunch of remakes out there. Well, there are a bunch of remakes out there under different names. All of them were made or published at least by one C company. People from Russia love their turn-based games, especially fantasy ones. And Elven Legacy, at least, is kind of the same game as this one. At least that's what it seemed to me back then. I haven't actually played Elven Legacy since like 2010 maybe. So my memory of it may be a bit tiny bit fuzzy, and I only played the basic one, the Ranger. No, actually the Ranger was an expansion. I played one of them, or like 4 of them. But the idea is that games like Fantasy General with the fantasy setting still exist, or at least existed. There's been a couple of them made. But still, if you want to go and play the original, yeah, you can absolutely find it on GOG. It's a little over €5 right now. It may be on sale soon because, you know, the big winter vacation thing is starting, and it's honestly kind of a nice game. Though I sort of kind of wish that there was a mobile version of it, like for a tablet, something you can play in bed easily without. Well, you don't really need much to play it. It's quite easy in terms of control interfaces stuff. Though I think there is an open Panzer something on Android if you're not into the fantasy setting. But if you are, again, you can find Fantasy General on GOG. I put an affiliate link in the description, but well, you know I'm too lazy to do that, and it's way too late to actually try and do something like that now. Next week's history is going to be the last one of the year, and I'm going to try and do something a bit different, a bit special, because, well, you know what kind of games I cover. I generally cover PC games. Well, next time is going to be something else. Something thematic, something that I very much would call a Christmas video game. In as much as Batman and Die Hard are Christmas movies, it'll be fun, as long as I can actually get it to work again. And I could always use some footage from the last time I made a show about it. Man, switching from Romanian to English really cuts down on the amount of footage you need to record, since you've already done most of the work once, so just slap it on again and use a different voiceover. Okay, I could probably do it right now and not even play the game again. Well, we'll see. Goodbye.